welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another episode. Finally got filming the episode that we've spoken about for so long. I've got the Stella versus Exist comparison, and here I've got the two combos that I've been using, and I've been trying to keep it as neutral and comparable as possible. So on both combos we're running Millerod's Twitch Freak LT, and I've got the Daiwa Exist 2500. So this is the global regular model, so not the shallow, not the extra heavy, not an extra high gear ratio, anything like that. And on the Shimano side, I've got the Shimano Stella, but this is the C2500S. So this is the Japanese model, as I wanted to be as close to the Exist weight as I possibly could. And all the models offered here in Australia are all much heavier. So there's about 10 grams difference between the two, and the Exist being around that 165 gram mark, and the Stella C2500S coming in around 175. But I don't want to go too much into the detail and the technical specifications of both reels and both products. I will touch on a couple as I discuss my personal observations during the time that I've been able to use these, and tell you what I think and which of the two I probably start to prefer now for certain situations. So without further ado, let's get stuck into the review. So starting off with the Exist, made in Japan, as you would expect for Daiwa's flagship reel, and likewise with the Stella. So as I mentioned at the intro, this is the Japanese model, and I have reached out to Shimano Australia to see if these were available or something that Shimano Australia would be interested in bringing out, and unfortunately at this stage it's not on their roadmap to bring out. So I did have to go and buy this from Japan for this comparison. But in terms of the line that I'm running on both of these, as I said, I've been trying to keep the comparisons as close to identical as possible. So both are running the Majorcraft Dangan 0.6 PE braid, and over the time I've really run 4, 5 and 6 pound leaders on these combos through the Millerod's Twitch Freak LTs. But cosmetically speaking, the Exist very much just a kind of silver body all throughout, similar for the Stella, with just that charcoal kind of grey spool, couple of, I don't even know how you would call them, a couple of those lines through the spool. But cosmetically speaking, both reels are very appealing. Not my favorite designs, I guess, from an Exist perspective. Do love that 2015 model, but no, still a very pleasing and a lovely looking reel. I'm going to start off with drag performance for both, and as you would expect with the flagship reels for both Daiwa and Shimano, you've got fantastic drag performance at both the light end and the heavy end of the spectrum as well, where I've needed to crank that drag up a little bit. The Exist 22 model has performed flawlessly for me. I'm now running, gosh, at least 6 or 7 of these in various sizes and configurations. So I've got a couple of the 2500s, 2500 XHs, 3000s, and now the new 2000 super finesse model as well for my straight through application. Now with the Stella, likewise, it's a very different feel in terms of the drag, but from a drag inertia or startup drag perspective, I've never found or experienced any issues with that initial run after the hook set. So I've never lost a fish due to a drag being too tight or not smooth enough during any of the fish that I've caught or any of the various fights that I've had. And most recently I've caught that really nice big perch at the Vic Brim Grand Final on this very reel, and that went 49 centimeters, and the drag performed flawlessly on 4 pound leader, I think, from memory too. So just goes to show you don't need to run heavy leaders, just fighting the fish correctly, using your rod and reel to do a lot of the work for you, and you can knock over some really big fish with small rods and reels such as this. In terms of physical size, they're very similar in terms of their overall size. If anything, the Daiwa was just a little bit maybe bulkier in that kind of spool design, and the Shimano's maybe a little bit narrower in its spool design around here, and it starts to taper at the top, and we'll talk about that in a little bit of detail in just a little bit and what that does in terms of casting performance. Now, there are a couple of features with the Stella that I do want to talk about that I found really useful and really neat. And I don't want to get them wrong, so I will refer to some documentation that I found, and I will try and put it up on the screen for you guys. But the first one is the infinity loop, and what that is I guess a technology that allows the spool to wind the line on more precisely by slowing down the up and down motion of the spool. And it's that the speed of the spool's vertical movement has been significantly reduced. So if you watch me wind the reel, it takes quite a while for that spool to move up and down in that vertical position. And from the documentation, what this says is this allows the line to be wound on neatly and densely onto the spool, reducing line release resistance. And this is definitely something that I have found, especially with a lot of my short dinky casts around structure, around pontoons, jetties, bridges. That was definitely something that I first noticed as I started to use this reel. So while a lot of this is marketing speak, from a consumer perspective and a user perspective, this is definitely a great feature and something that I definitely noticed when I've gone to cast even those really light lures. That line release resistance has definitely been improved and is far better on the Shimano versus the Exist. So for comparison's sake, I'll show you guys how quickly that spool moves up and down on the Exist. And we'll also talk about another very handy feature on the Stella that we don't have on the Exist. But the infinity loop is a wonderful new addition to the Stella lineup. And the other one that I wanted to talk about is the anti-twist fin, which sits right here under the line roller. And it's an elastic fin positioned close to the line roller. By preventing the line from sagging, it reduces the occurrence of the line being sucked onto the lower part of the spool and the line being wound onto the spool while twisted. Now, I can confirm that after months and months of use with various lures, various techniques, I have absolutely zero line twist on this Stella. None, like absolutely none whatsoever. And unfortunately, I can't say the same for the Exist. I've got quite a lot of line twist, especially when using lures such as like a 3 or 4 inch minnow. And anytime you want to wind a lure in really quickly, even though you might have it rigged dead straight, there'll be times that lure blows out and that just creates line twist. Things such as spinning for trout, a lot of that creates a lot of line twist, but this anti-twist fin on the Stella has been an absolute game changer for me. It comes with a stock fin, which is really close and leaves a really tiny gap between the fin, or the top of the fin, and the line roller. See if we can get that in for you guys. So in there is a little gap, as you can kind of see through there. Now, I have taken out the stock fin and put in the slightly smaller fin, I guess you could say, which creates a bigger gap between the fin and the line roller. And for me, what that's done, or what I observed initially with the stock fin that was on here, was it was kind of hindering my cast, depending on where my braid to leader knot was in relation to this fin, this general kind of area, as I went to put my finger on the rod, and make my cast, essentially. It would often get stuck in there, and I really didn't like that experience in the early days. But after doing a little bit of reading and having a good look through the box, there is a second fin, and it's super easy to take out. You can see a little hole there to take out that fin, and I just use like a little jig head hook, pull that out, and then pop the other fin in. And for me, that really solved that issue And as I say, that anti-twist fin technology has been an absolute game changer. Now, let's talk about two other features of the Stella that I have really enjoyed using. And the first one is the ARC spool. Again, some more marketing speak, but what we're really talking about, or what the most important part that I've found has been, is the special, I guess, spool ring shape. The inclined spool edge creates what they say, a moderate friction resistance, leading to a streamlined line release effect. So I think between the spool and, the infinity loop technology, and the way that the line is wound onto the spool with that slow oscillation and that vertical movement, really does create a smoother, easier cast. Both for short distance casting in and around structure where you want to be really precise, all the way to making those nice long casts at the park when you're comparing two reels side by side. And I will show you guys some of those comparisons later in this video. And the other one is the long stroke spool, a feature design that extends the width of the spool's line winding area, and this reduces line reduction during the latter part of the cast, contributing to improved casting feel and increased casting distance. So again, a lot of marketing speak, but from my observations, I have found that the Stella does cast easier, smoother, and further on the majority of occasions in the same scenarios versus the Daiwa Exist of the same size. So we're going to cut to some fishing action out on the water, out on the kayak, using the Stella. I'll try and get some footage of the Exist, but you guys have seen that in action in many videos in the past. We'll go and catch some fish at the Patterson River at my local, and then come back to close this thing out. Come on. Yep. I knew one would eat. It's gonna rip. Perch on the stick minnow. Biscuits. And then we're going to try the stick minnow. That was right in the slot where I need it to be. No bite. There should be a few there. Yep, that's a brim. we're all done, wrapped up that fishing segment, and now let's head on over to the park where I've taken both of these combos with the same exact jig heads, same exact leaders. So I was running 1/16 jig heads with a plastic that we all know and love very much. So the Daiwa Bait Junkie wave minnows. And I conducted a series of 3 tests from 3 different locations. I made 4 casts with each reel at each station, trying to account for the wind or different wind conditions. Essentially try and prove that one reel was going to be more consistent or would consistently cast further than the other during all experiments. So let's head on over to the park and check out what happened. All right, folks, here we are. I've always promised to you guys that I'm going to do something scientific in regards to the old Stella versus Exist, and I'm down at my local footy ground. Let me flip you guys around. Let's see what I'm doing, what I've got set up today. But I've got some cones set up. I've got 2 identical rods. I've got the Stella and the Exist with identical line. I'm going to make a couple of false casts, get that braid nice and smooth running through the guides, make sure it's not dry, and we're going to do some casting with the exact same jig head. So I've got 2 rods rigged up with 1/16 and the Bait Junkie wave minnows. So they're exactly identical, and what we're going to be doing is doing some casting tests to see whether the shape of the spool of the Stella makes a difference in casting distance. So I'm going to do a couple of casts with a 1/16 and then switch over to a 1/12 and see again if that makes any difference. So let's get stuck into this experiment and see what the results are like shortly. We've concluded 8 casts, and we're going to go check out the results together. We've got quite a close spread. If we have a look at this angle here, we can see the yellow is the Stella and the red is the Exist. So the 4 Exist casts all landed within about 30 centimeters of one another in terms of overall distance. Maybe that far right one was probably another 1/2 meter to a meter that we got. But the Stella, also the 3 casts were very similar. And then I've just got one outlier here, which is a good 2.5 meters further than any of the other casts, but it could have been down to just some favorable wind conditions on that particular cast. So overall, the results are actually a lot closer than I expected, so that's really pleasing to see. I'm going to change the direction of my casting angle and cast towards those cricket nets to try and take some of that wind factor out of it on this next set of tests. Check out these results. So once again, the red is our Exist and the yellow is our Stella. So I'm going to go side on to show you guys the overall results. So those first 2 clusters, that close cluster and those 2, were made on kind of back-to-back casts with the Stella Exist. This red was made before that yellow cast, and then this final red was also made for that Stella cast. So overall, the Stella is about 1.5 meters to a maximum of 2 meters on this cast further with every cast that I have done in that round of testing. with slightly changed wind conditions, but identical scenarios for both reels there. We're going to do one more round of testing and see how the results shake out in the end. Let's check out these results. So what I've tried to do has been to mix it up on this particular last set of casts, and what I've done is 2 casts from each side, so to speak, to even out for any wind discrepancies or angles or things of that nature. So once again, the first 3 casts have been pretty well identical in terms of what we've seen from our test results. Red, exist are the shortest 3 casts. The next 3 were from the Stella, and Stella. And then what we see up here on this last red was the very last cast where I got the perfect angle and hang time with the wind. And this was the last cast with the Stella after that on a slightly changed angle. So what does this tell us? With the perfect kind of wind conditions, you can get pretty much identical casts, but what I've tried to do in terms of recreating a almost like-for-like scenario, I have seen probably 80 to 90% of the time that the Stella still casts a couple of meters further than the Exist. So that's probably my key takeaway. The casting difference, or the casting length difference, is not huge, but it is there. And I think just the effort required to make those shorter casts that I've observed casting around structure and making those shorter casts does feel more effortless with the Stella in terms of that line coming off the spool, the lure flying through the air. Does seem to be a little bit easier with the Shimano Stella. Time to wrap this one up. Now it has to be said that obviously both reels are top of the line, outstanding performers. They've been rock solid for me in the many years that I've used these now, and probably 5 to 6 months with the Stella. So this hasn't stood the test of time for me, so to speak, just yet, but I've definitely been very, very impressed with it. So both great performers, great combinations too. They pair up really well with these Miller Rods Twitch Freak LT rods for a number of different techniques and applications, from light structure fishing to plastics fishing with these wave minnows out in the open or on drop-offs and weedy edges. Great for surface fishing as well. So these combos really can do it all. But I've got to say, with some of that technology and some of those new improvements to the Stella that I spoke about, especially with the spool design, the way that slow oscillation kind of occurs, that vertical movement of the spool, and the way that line goes back onto the spool, and the easier casting ability and feel, I have now made the switch to run 3 Shimanos on my Twitch Freaks. So I haven't bought any more Stellas at this point, but I have bought 2 new Shimano Vanquish C2500Ss to replace the 2 other Exists that I have. So I run 3 of these Twitch Freak Exist combos, and I've been so pleased and so happy with this Stella that I have obtained 2 more Shimanos. So the Vanquishes on paper are actually even an improvement over the Stella again. I think they're a little bit lighter, so I think they might be very similar or just a touch lighter than the Exist in weight. So it's going to be under that 155, 160 gram mark. And just the way that line lays, the ability to make those short, sharp casts with very minimal effort, I found really appealing and pleasing. But as I said at the start of the video, a lot of these Exists have got, continue to have a place in my outfits, just due to the fact that they've got so many different combinations of ratios, so retrieve ratios and yeah, they're just rock solid, and I'll absolutely continue to use them and love them. But for what I do with these Twitch Freaks, I've gone to all Shimano's, and I'm really looking forward to testing it out further in 2025. The Vanquishers are sitting in the back room ready to be spooled. I was waiting to finish off this video before I started stripping some line off the Exists, swapping it over onto the Vanquishers, and really looking forward to it. But let me know what you guys think. I've noticed that a few more people are starting to go towards the Shimano path who've been diehard Daiwa fans. To anyone who's watching from Shimano Australia, we would love to have some further options. Please consider bringing out some models such as the C2500S in your various reel lines. Whatever you've got there, I think it's a great size for Australian conditions and for what we fish for. So we'd love to have the opportunity to buy these locally and have the support from Shimano Australia. But yeah, that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I know I've enjoyed making it, and I've really enjoyed doing something different. I've been using Daiwa Exist for a long time, and so it's been really fun just to try something else, and I'm really pleased that I did, which has now led to a couple more Shimano acquisitions with the Vanquishers, and time will tell how those will go. But that's it for now. Leave your comments and your thoughts in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Cheers.